There is a kind of winning that empties you. You cross the finish line. The crowd erupts. Your name is called, and you stand there with your arms raised, chest heaving, waiting for the feeling you were promised, the feeling that this, finally, is enough. But sometimes the crowd goes quiet, and in that silence, you hear something you were not expecting. You hear the question you have been running too fast to face. This is the story of a young man named Ethan, who had to lose the right kind of race before he understood what winning actually meant. Ethan had been fast for as long as he could remember, not just with his feet, though his feet were extraordinarily lean and quick and tireless, carrying him past other boys with an ease that looked almost careless. He was fast in other ways too. Fast to see an opportunity. Fast to position himself at the front. Fast to understand, instinctively, that in any room, on any field, there was a hierarchy, and that the only position worth occupying was the top. He had grown up in a small town where the annual running competition was the closest thing to a festival that the community had. People came from neighboring villages. Old men brought their folding chairs and their opinions. Children sat on the ground at the front. The atmosphere had a particular quality that Ethan loved. The feeling of being watched, of being the subject of other people's attention, of mattering in a way that was visible and measurable and undeniable. He had won the race 3 years in a row. He intended to win it a 4th time. The morning of the competition, Ethan stretched in the early light with the focused calm of someone who already knows the outcome. Around him, the other 2 runners, boys he had grown up with, boys he liked well enough outside of competition, prepared with the slightly desperate energy of people who know they are already behind. Ethan noticed this and felt, privately, a satisfaction he would not have admitted to anyone. At the edge of the crowd, sitting apart from the noise and excitement on a simple wooden chair, there was an old man Ethan did not recognize. He was not from this town. His face was deeply lined, his hands folded quietly in his lap, his eyes moving across the scene with the unhurried attention of someone who has watched many things and learned to look beneath their surfaces. He did not look excited. He did not look bored. He looked, Ethan thought in passing, like someone who was waiting for something specific. Not the race itself, but something the race might reveal. Ethan forgot about him almost immediately. The race was about to begin. He won the first race easily. The crowd erupted the way he loved, immediate, loud, unrestrained. People called his name. Children pointed. An old woman near the front clapped with both hands raised, her face bright with the uncomplicated joy of watching someone do something well. Ethan raised both arms and felt, as he always did in this moment, that the world was in its correct order. He looked, briefly, at the old man at the edge of the crowd. The old man had not moved. His expression had not changed. His hands remained folded in his lap with the same quiet patience as before. Something small and uncomfortable moved through Ethan and was gone before he could name it. The second race brought 2 new competitors, older boys from a neighboring village, stronger than the ones he had just beaten, their faces carrying the particular focus of people who had come specifically to win. The crowd murmured with anticipation. This, they felt, would be a real contest. It was not much of a contest. Ethan crossed the finish line, with enough distance between himself and the second runner to make the victory feel almost leisurely. The crowd's reaction was louder than before, partly because the competition had been better, and partly because there is something about watching someone repeatedly win that makes the watching feel like participation in something larger than a single event. Ethan was breathing hard now, and grinning, and feeling the particular intoxication of accumulated success. He turned again toward the old man. The old man was watching him. Their eyes met, and the old man's expression was the same, attentive, calm, entirely unmoved, not hostile, not disapproving, simply waiting. Ethan felt the small uncomfortable thing again, sharper this time. He pushed it down. "One more race," he called out, surprising even himself with the loudness of his own voice. "One more." The crowd responded with encouragement. The old man stood up slowly from his chair and walked to the edge of the running field. He gestured to two figures who had been sitting quietly at the far end of the crowd, an elderly woman whose back curved forward with the weight of many years, and a man about Ethan's age whose eyes moved slightly wrong, unfocused, the eyes of someone navigating a world he cannot see. Ethan stared. "What is this?" he asked, and he was not able to keep the confusion entirely out of his voice. "These are my competitors?" "This too is a race," the old man said. His voice was quiet and even, without apology or explanation. The starting signal was given. Ethan ran. He ran as he always ran, with everything he had, the way running felt natural to him, the way it had always felt, his body moving through the air with that ease that looked almost careless. He crossed the finish line alone. Behind him, the elderly woman was still moving slowly along the track, her steps small and careful, her face set with the particular dignity of someone doing something difficult without complaint. The blind man had stopped and was standing very still, his head slightly raised, listening for something that would orient him. In the sudden silence, Ethan raised his arms. The crowd did not respond. He turned to look at them. Hundreds of faces. People he had grown up with. People who had called his name 10 minutes ago were watching him with an expression he could not immediately read. Not anger. Not disappointment. Exactly. Something quieter and more uncomfortable than either of those things. Something that looked, he realized slowly, like the absence of recognition. Like watching someone do something that does not mean what they think it means. The silence stretched. Ethan lowered his arms. He turned to the old man. "Why aren't they cheering?" he asked. And his voice came out smaller than he intended. The old man looked at him for a long moment. "Run again," he said simply. "But this time, all three of you finished together." Ethan stood at the starting line again. The elderly woman was beside him, breathing slowly, her hands at her sides. The blind man was on his other side, very still, waiting. Ethan looked at both of them, and something shifted in his chest, not dramatically, not with the electric surge of a motivational moment, but quietly, the way light changes in a room when a cloud moves. He took the woman's hand in his right hand. He took the blind man's hand in his left. He felt, through both grips, the particular fragility of people who have learned to trust carefully, the light, careful pressure of hands that are not sure yet whether they are safe. "Ready?" he said. Neither of them answered, but he felt their grip tighten slightly, and that was enough. The signal was given. Ethan walked, not ran, walked, slowly, adjusting his pace to the woman's careful steps, leaning slightly toward the blind man to guide him around the slight unevenness in the track. It took 4 times as long as any race he had run before. His legs, built for speed, felt strange in this different kind of effort. Not strained exactly, just asked to do something they had never been asked to do. When the three of them crossed the finish line together, the crowd erupted, not the polite loud cheer of an expected victory. Something fuller than that, something with tears in it, something that seemed to be celebrating, not just what had happened in the last few minutes, but something larger, some quality of the moment that touched people in the place where they kept things they did not usually talk about. Old men in their folding chairs were clapping with both hands. The children at the front were on their feet. The old woman beside him was crying quietly, still holding his hand. The old man was smiling genuinely, completely, for the first time. "Sir," Ethan said, when the noise had settled slightly, "I don't understand. Who are they cheering for? Out of the three of us, who are they praising?" The old man put a hand on his shoulder. His grip was light, but steady. The grip of someone who has something important to give and wants to make sure it lands. "Look at their faces," he said. "They are not cheering for a winner. They are celebrating an action. Your action." He paused. "Every race you ran today, you finished first. But only in this last one did the crowd truly celebrate. Do you understand why?" Ethan thought about it honestly, which was harder than it sounds. "Because winning alone doesn't mean anything to them," he said slowly. "Because winning alone," the old man said, "is easy to do and impossible to share. When you ran past everyone, you gave them a performance. When you walked with those two, you gave them something they could feel in themselves." He looked out at the crowd, which was still talking and animated, the energy of the moment still moving through them. "That is the difference between a race and a life." He turned back to Ethan. "You will run many more races. You will win many of them. And winning is not wrong. Do not misunderstand me. Speed is a gift, and you should use it." His voice was quiet and very clear. But the question worth asking at the end of any race is not only did I win, it is who was running beside me. And when they fell behind, what did I do? He removed his hand from Ethan's shoulder and stepped back. "Run," he said. "Run as fast as you can. But remember that the races that will matter most, when you look back at the end of your life, will not be the ones you won alone. They will be the ones where you slowed down long enough to bring someone with you." Ethan stood at the finish line for a long time after the crowd had dispersed. He looked down at his hands, the hands that had crossed so many finish lines, the hands that had just held the fragile, careful grip of an old woman and a blind man across a simple stretch of ground. They looked the same as they always had, but they felt different. Like something had been added to them that had not been there before. Not weight exactly. Something more like responsibility. Something more like possibility. He thought about all the races he had run, all the finish lines he had crossed alone, arms raised, name called, crowd cheering, all those victories that had felt, in the moment, like everything and that had left him. By the next morning, already hungry for the next one. He thought about the silence after he crossed the line ahead of the old woman and the blind man, and he understood, finally, what the silence had been saying. Not "you did something wrong." Just, "Is that all? Is that the whole race? Is that everything you have to give?" He walked home slowly that evening, through streets he had run through hundreds of times. He noticed things he had not noticed before: an old neighbor struggling with a heavy bag of groceries, a young child trying to reach something on a shelf too high for her, a man sitting alone on a bench with the expression of someone who has been sitting there for a long time. He stopped. He helped. He moved on. It did not feel heroic. It did not feel like winning. It felt, he thought, like something quieter and more durable than either of those things. It felt like the beginning of a different kind of race, one he intended to run well.